from Mr. Latham as soon as he takes a few questions from the room. So he'll be going to the phone lines. And just make sure you identify yourself with your name and your organization, if you would, please. We'll be starting here in just one moment.
I was trying to think of a clever budget line there.
Come on up here. Come on up here. Come on. Come on, folks. Yeah. No hiding. No hiding. Good afternoon. Thanks. Appreciate all of you being here. And before I start, I'd just like to say how much I appreciate the work of the news media and helping us get the word out yesterday on what we thought was going to be a pretty significant weather event, and has turned out to be that. We rely on you very heavily to make sure that we get the word out to the public when something like this happens. And I appreciate everything that y'all have done, and you're a critical part of our messaging campaign in doing that. Well, I think it's pretty obvious that when you look at, the area impacted along the I-20 corridor and south, that it's pretty much played out as we expected it would be based on the reports that we got from the National Weather Service office in Jackson, and then the reports from National Weather Service in Slidell and Mobile, who gave us the updates, constant updates on what to expect in South Mississippi, and it's pretty much played out that way. Before I get started, I want to make sure that I make this announcement because this is important. I've talked to the governor and briefed him on where we are and what we expect to happen over the next 24 to 36 hours. And he did ask me to say that, we're going to look at probably closing state offices of non-essential personnel within the impacted area until about noon tomorrow. Probably around 9 or 10 o'clock, we'll all get together, look at the latest forecast, work with the Department of Public Safety and Highway Patrol to see what the road conditions are, and make a decision at that point as whether it's safe maybe for individuals to then come in and report to work at noon. So that's the plan right now, unless you hear otherwise. Temperatures are not expected to get above freezing for an extended period of time until Thursday, but the latest report I saw that, late Thursday morning we could have temperatures 50 degrees. So it's going to change significantly, but probably not until Thursday, late Thursday morning. As long as there's the potential for freezing temperatures, freezing rain, and we still have a significant amount of that falling in South Mississippi, especially the lower 6 counties where we see nothing but freezing rain in a mixed fall in that area now, there's still the potential for power outages, which is a concern of ours, because once we start having those power outages, then we've got to look at, how do we get people who don't have adequate heating sources out of those homes and into other areas where they'll be safe and secure until their power can be restored. Obviously, we've been communicating with our local emergency managers to make sure plans are made for shelter openings should that be necessary, working with the American Red Cross, the Salvation Army, other volunteer organizations and faith-based organizations that are a critical part of making sure that we can support those shelters once they open. And I think the word to the public is to make sure that if we do have those down power lines and trees on top of power lines, that they have to assume that those power lines are live. Just do not touch them. Don't attempt to remove the limbs, because if they're in contact with a power line, you can be electrocuted as a result of that line still being charged. Could be residual voltage in that line as well. Treat all down power lines as live. For pets, because of the extended period of cold temperatures, make sure you bring your pets in, take care of them. Check with family, friends, neighbors. I think the important thing to remember for us is that when you have extended periods of cold weather like this, especially the elderly, those that are fragile because of health conditions, Jim will probably want to elaborate on this. Just make sure that we look out after each other because neighbors and friends can take care of people a lot better than government can do that. You know where those people are. We want to make sure that no one, because of loss of power and the lack of heat, freezes to death in their home. So just, reach out to those around you and make sure that you take care of them as well. Stay off the roads unless it's an absolute emergency. School closings from the Department of Education. We had 59 school districts closed today. 25 have reported closing tomorrow already, and the numbers are increasing because there's still a potential for the roads to be slick in the morning, and Colonel Berry will report on that in a minute. There are some that are considering some delayed start times. I just urge the citizens to just listen closely to where you normally get your information about school openings and closings, and it's up to the local superintendents as to when those schools are going to be open or if they're going to be closed. So you just need to pay attention to that. And they're working closely with their local emergency managers to make sure they have the latest information to make that decision. It's interesting. One thing I want to report on is that since this event started, and we've had, because we've been posting all kind of road conditions, the impact on the counties, and how widespread this event was, we've had over 74,000 shares of our post on Facebook, which is pretty remarkable. And we've got, working with other state agencies, we've got links on our website that can carry you to the Department of Transportation, Department of Public Safety, Department of Health, and others to get information, as do they, that links you to the MEMA website. So I would just encourage you to go to these agencies as well as ours, like us on Facebook, because social media is becoming the way of communicating with the public. And we can reach more people in a short period of time there. And I've just urged the citizens to go out there and register so that they can get the most up-to-date information. So at this time, I'd like to call on Willie Huff with the Department of Transportation to give us an update on the highways.
Good afternoon. Thank y'all for being here today. I want to echo Robert's statement about the media and the impact that you've had with getting the information out. We really appreciate that. As you know, the events are still unfolding in the southern part of the state. Rain and sleet still falling. The roadways are freezing. Our crews are out, been out all night and all day today. The northern districts, such as I-20, we've got reports of the interstate being iced over, Newton, Scott counties. Just a rule of thumb, if it's south of I-20, it's probably frozen, and our crews are working to keep those roadways as passable as possible. We're encouraging folks to, as Robert said a while ago, delay your travel unless it's an emergency. And if it is an emergency, make sure that you let someone know where you're going, when you're leaving, let them know when you're there, and be sure and take blankets and other essentials in case something happens and you get stranded on the roadway. It could be by the act of some other driver, not you, or some force other than you having control over, such as a tree falling in the roadway. As I said, our crews are out. With the continued precipitation that's happening on the coast, it's difficult for the measures that we put in place to be able to get ahead of the icing. Just don't make an assumption that because an MDOT crew is there that roadway is safe. And then another assumption not to make is if the roadway is dry where you're traveling, in the next 100 feet it could be black ice or patchy ice. Everyone needs to be aware that just because the roadway looks dry at night, it could very well have a film of ice on it. And then again, you can contact us through social media, your local law enforcement. We have a GoMDOT website, mdottraffic.com, as well as GoMDOT website, Twitter, and Facebook accounts also. Thank you.
Thank you, Willie. Now we've got Colonel Berry with the Highway Patrol to give you an update on what they've been doing. I can tell you the troopers have been really busy today.
Thanks, Robert. Thank you all for being here. As Willie Huff was saying, the conditions are really begin to unfold on the coast, down near the coast. We got a couple of bridges that are being closed. The bridge at Bay St. Louis due to the ice, and the bridge over at Ocean Spring is being closed due to the ice. The Highway Patrol have worked over 200 accidents today due to the ice storm. Right now, I-20 over near Lauderdale and the Newton County line, we're working a 318-wheeler wreck over there now, and the eastbound lane is closed at this time. US 49 south from Pineywood back south to the coast, it's still ice on the roadway, and we are encouraging the public to stay off the roadway. And if you have to travel, and if you run into an emergency, you always could use Star 47 or Star MHP to report an emergency where we could get to you. We're working around the clock, 12-hour shifts, so we're going to be out all night patrolling the roadway. 55 south from around the 81 mile marker back south, reported ice on that 55 south too. And when you're driving up near a bridge or overpass, let's slow down and use extreme caution, because right now the bridges begin to ice over, and like the Willie Huff was saying, this black ice, you can't see it until you get right on it, and when you hit it, you're going to lose it. So use extreme caution when you approach a bridge or overpass. Right now, that's about it. We got I-20 at the Lauderdale, Newton County line. The eastbound lane is closed. We're working a wreck over there. And 55 south from the 81 mile marker back south is ice. And 49 from Pineywood back to the coast is ice. So if you don't have to travel, stay in and wait till this is weather ease up. Because right now, everything is covered with ice. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. Jim Craig with the Department of Health.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here today, too. We have contacted all the healthcare facilities in the impacted areas to see what type of impacts the storm has had on their operations, and also to see if there were any resource needs that have been identified. I'm happy to report the healthcare system seems to be well in place, even in the impacted areas. Our next largest concern, and we've asked them to look at their emergency operations plan for this contingent, is the potential of power outages. That is a serious concern to the people of Mississippi as well as our healthcare facilities to be ready for those potential power outages as they occur. As Mr. Latham said, it's really, really important for all Mississippians to be prepared for those potential power outages because they may be somewhat extended. So think about those things like keeping the home warm. If you're going to be using a generator to do that, please make sure the generator is not in the home, that it's in a well-ventilated area away from the home. Carbon monoxide is a very deadly gas in the home, and we don't want anyone to be impacted by carbon monoxide exposure. So if you're adding heat to the home, whether you're using your stove or some other device, make sure it's well ventilated. And in addition to that, if you have food that is in a refrigerator and it's closed, if you can keep that door closed as much as possible, it'll last a good couple of hours in there. Things that are in freezers, again, if you don't go in and out of those freezers too often, that food will stay in place usually for around 24 hours. If it's half full, if the freezer's pretty full, you may actually get up to 48 hours. In the event that you are concerned about the food, I have a saying, when in doubt, throw it out. It's better to replace it than it is to get sick from eating something that is spoiled. So again, if you look after your neighbors, we have a lot of people that are homebound, check on them, especially if there are power outages in your area, to make sure they're okay. It'll be very, very helpful. We'll continue to support local emergency manager and the local healthcare system for any of their needs and resources. If you have needs that have been identified, by all means, make sure your local emergency management office is aware of those, and we'll be more than happy to assist. If you have questions or you need more information about things that you could do for a power outage, now's a good time to look at it. You can go to our website, healthyms.com, which is the State Department of Health's website. There's lots of information on preparedness as well as things that you can do that may save your life in a winter event such as this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And I want to follow on one of the things that Jim said. My background in the fire service, I know that when people get cold, they will do almost anything to stay warm. Kim McGee, Department of Public Safety, was telling me just a minute ago that he had seen where we had 4 fatalities in North Mississippi as a result of a space heater. And I just want to caution the public, kind of along the lines Jim said, let's just don't do something that's going to cause us more problems, fatalities, especially people that leave these things close to flammable materials, leave them on when they go to bed. Something's ignited, they don't have a smoke detector, and they can't get out. First and foremost, you need a smoke detector in every home. And I think it's important to understand that, if we look out after each other, our neighbors and our friends, others in the community, you know better than anybody else what those needs are. If you have people that are homebound, if you know that people are without power and they lack the heat, I remember during Hurricane Katrina, we talked about, take, people in, help people that help them, bring them to your home if you have heat or something, you can take care of them. And let's get back to, communities taking care of each other, because there's just only so much government can do. And, when we get involved and have to do something, it's almost too late to have an impact on the outcome. And I just urge you to do that. So having said that, I'll close and open the floor up in here for questions, and then we'll open, I know we've got individuals on the phone that may want to ask questions too, so, yeah. Yeah, Scott, based on what we're seeing and hearing from the National Weather Service, it's going to remain below freezing and more likely in the teens and the 20s overnight, so it's not going to thaw. It's probably not going to get above freezing, depending on where you are in the state, until sometime tomorrow afternoon. You may see a little bit in the morning, but they're saying it might not be above freezing more than 2 or 3 hours, and then it's going to freeze again. Hopefully by then some of it's evaporated. But then I think they're saying by Thursday, late morning, we should be in the 50s. So, I mean, we've got to get through tonight, certainly through tomorrow morning, and see what the conditions are. Hopefully by then it'll be improving. And, but you still have these spots that are isolated that Willie talked about, this black ice, you don't see it. And then you think the road's dry, and then you hit that and you lose control of your vehicle, and, that you hit something or, hit somebody else. So.
In these wrecks that the highway patrol is responding to, have there been any very serious injuries or deaths associated with any of these crashes?
Fortunately, we hadn't had any. Just been people driving too fast, running off the road, hitting the bridge, and things of that nature.
I know hindsight's 20/20, but anything from any of the various agencies that you are learning from this particular storm that you'll apply in the next?
Yeah, I think as many of these things as we've been through, we still don't have it totally right. I mean, we learn something every time we have one of these events. I think the one thing we probably learn the most is that, people ask us, are we better prepared than we were then, or the last storm or the last event? And we get a little bit better at government. The one thing that I don't see us getting better at is individual and family and community preparedness. For instance, if people just stay off the roads, there'd be no wrecks. We know that's not possible in every case. People, for emergencies, have to get on the roads. But, if people just use a little common sense and just take care of themselves and their families, and, when it's prudent, stay off the roads, stay off the roads. So all of these things we learn just a little bit more. We're better prepared than we've ever been. We have backup power in all of our critical facilities in the state. Hospitals, nursing homes have, backup power for their critical facilities within that building. So we've got a lot of things that we didn't have during Hurricane Katrina. But, I think we just got to keep pushing individual, community responsibility and preparedness, because I've said many times that that's what's going to change the outcome of the event, is what they do, not necessarily what we do. So I just encourage citizens to take this, learn from it. You don't ever say we won't ever have an ice storm, because we've got an ice storm now in places that never had an ice storm. So, anything else in the room? And I'll open it up now for anybody that we've got on the phone that may have some questions.
This is Bert Moore with the Associated Press.
Yes.
I heard you mention 4 fatalities in North Mississippi. Are those the deaths reported this storm?
to my knowledge, those are the only deaths that I think we can, attribute to the weather. And like I said, it was a space heater and that caught fire, and we had 4 fatalities of family members that died in the fire. Those are the only ones we're aware of.
Yes, sir. This is Tim Doherty down in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. We're still getting a lot of rain and sleet. Snow is supposed to move in. Do we know if we've had any accumulation in this area?
I'm not aware. The last time I was in contact with the emergency management director in Forest County, Terry Steed, he said it was still freezing rain and sleet and that it had not changed over. Based on our conversation with the Weather Service, it looks like there will be a changeover to snow at some point. But when you look at the Hattiesburg area south, and we're looking at the radar now, I mean, it's going to be, late into the night and maybe early morning hours before it moves out of those areas. So you may very well see a changeover later.
Thank you.
But I want to reemphasize that, the ice is already on the ground. The freezing rain is there. Those are the hazards. Snow's not going to, really increase that hazard until it becomes packed on top of the ice that's already there and complicates it even more. But I think the danger is already what it is. So, I think the snow might increase it a little bit, but the significant ice in those areas is going to cause us problems.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anyone else on the phone? Any other questions in the room? Thank you all again. I appreciate you being here. Appreciate you, Be careful going to New York. See if you can bring you some material.